Okay, good morning, friends. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Habayim. This is our last Iyun Shiur on Kesuvos. We made a siyum. There was the national or international Shiur on Kesuvos Thursday night in the Bright Stone in Passaic. In our shul, we made a siyum on Kesuvos. Be'ezus Hashem, in 2 Motzei Shabbosim, I'm going to be at the Kesuvos Siyum in South Africa. There's going to be a major Siyum celebrating Kesuvos in South Africa. But now, today, we have a very special Siyum, and that is, we actually had some kind of Iyun Shiur. I mean, we dug into something on every blot on Kesuvos. So this is a separate Inyan that we were zeicha to spend time on an Inyan on every blot in Kesuvos. I might break this up into 2 parts. One will be new for everyone, and the other, I'll repeat something we said on Shabbos. Okay, so we have a very interesting question here, because the Gemara tells us, we're going to start with the Rabbi Ephraim. The Gemara tells us that of the very loving practices of the Amoraim toward Eretz Yisroel, Rabbi Abba Menashe Kipi, Rabbi Abba kissed the stones. If I'm not mistaken, the first time I went to Eretz Yisroel, I was 10 years old. And I was told that when you go to Eretz Yisroel, you have to get down on the floor and kiss the stones. I don't remember who told me that. Maybe my grandparents. I don't know. So that's what people were doing. So I think we did that. Not that I felt any particular special chibas haaretz at that age, but that's what you were told to do. So I think that engendered a certain chiba. I think at the time people were doing it. In any event, it comes from this Gemara that Rabbi Abba Menashe Kipi Da'akai. He kissed the stones of Akko. I'm just thinking, is Akko even Eretz Yisrael? Because the Mishnah in Gittin says, Akkoi Litzafain, the Akkoi Kitzafain, that it's not part of Eretz Yisrael. But anyway, actually, Tosfos asks this question. That's Tosfos' kasha. Tosfos asks, Masha de Eretz Yisrael hu, v'chein b'shili misha achsa, v'tem d'varakam de gittin, tanan akko k'Eretz Yisrael gittin, masha de havim v'chutzars. Yeah, we learned this, Tosfos. Okay, fine. So Tosfos says, u'mefarsh v'yushalmi, chetzia me Eretz v'chetzia b'chutzars. Half was in Eretz Yisrael and half was in Chutz. Okay, in any event, in the Shalsuchus Rabbi Ephraim, Chelek Vav Simen Kuf Mem Zayin, he brings a story about the Brisker Rav when he came to Eretz Yisrael. Somebody was following him. Amad Echad Ba'akav Achiv Kala Eis Lirois Im Menashe Kesad Mas Eretz HaKodesh. The guy was gonna, he was snooping on him to see if he would kiss the ground. Kamay Shema Super B'Gemara Ides Amaram Uchshara Griz. He saw the Griz didn't kiss the ground. So he said, Rabbi, why aren't you kissing the ground? Stam sasam v'loy piresh. Stam v'loy. The Rambam doesn't just bring down stories. What does that mean? The Rambam doesn't just bring down stories. And that's what the Griz says. The Rambam doesn't just bring down stories. And the Griz didn't explain what he meant. One of the Griz's sons asked, what did the Griz mean? What do you mean, Tati? V'hizver the haram in Hilchos Malachim Parakei Halach Yod Kasu Gedoyle hachachamim hayu menashkim al tchumim Eretz Yisrael. The great sages would kiss the borders of Eretz Yisrael. By the way, that Rambam is very telling to me. I didn't realize this. I think the Rambam's bothered by Tosfos' question. In other words, question, why did Rabbi Abba Dafka kiss Akkai? Why didn't he kiss Yerushalayim? It seems like he's kissing the borders of Eretz Yisrael, right? That's what it sounds like from the Rambam. He's kissing the borders. Why the borders? Because that shows this is Eretz Yisrael. There's a certain havchana, there's a certain In other words, when are you Mekadesh Shabbos? You're Mekadesh Shabbos at the beginning. You're Mekadesh at the end. When you could see the difference between the alternative, that should engender the chiba. So maybe that's the emphasis on why Rabbi Abba would be menashek akoy dafka. Like Tosfos says, half of it was in and half of it was out. Anyway, but that's not the emphasis that the Griz was picking up. I'm just pointing out that's another interesting nekuda on the Rambam. The Rambam loy kosev sipurei maisiyos. V'im kasav gedolei hachamim. The Rambam says the great sages ein za sipur greda. This is not just a story. Ela halacha. This is halacha. Shedin zenem rak legedolei hachamim bavad. This is only for the great sages. V'loy shayach elai. It's not shayach to me. Ad kan divrei hakosev b'yate ne'eman. So writes the writer of the Yate Ne'eman. So here we have a very authentic source. The magazine, the paper, Yate Ne'eman, reports the story about the Griz, that the reason why the Griz did not kiss Eretz Yisrael is because when the Rambam records it, he says, Gedolei HaChachamim, not every Joe, and not every regular person, so to speak, kisses Eretz Yisrael, only Gedolei Chachamim. Now, the Rambam by Hilchos Shabbos also says, the Chachamim Harishonim hayu makbitzim talmideihain be'erev Shabbos u'mesatfim va'omrim boyu v'neitzeh l'kra Shabbos hamelach u'l'ha'amar loy l'chinam hoysav ha'Rambam v'chachamim Harishonim davar ze'ein masel kol. In other words, you could ask a question, why do we say Kabbalah Shabbos in shul? Why don't we go out to the fields? You ever wonder about that? Why don't we go out to the fields? The answer is because when the Rambam codifies it, he says that this was something the Chachamim Harishonim used to do. Well, we're not on the level of Chachamim Harishonim, and therefore this is not a practice practiced by everyone. This is the Shas Chuvas Rav Voice Ephraim. I want to add, at the Siyum, on Thursday night, Rav Lipa Geldworth spoke, and he said a diuk in the Rashi, one of the Rashis on Kuf Yud Beis Amud Beis. Because the Gemara brings other practices. The Gemara brings the practice of Reb Ami and Reb Asi, who would go from the sun to the shade and from the shade to the sun, because they didn't want to be uncomfortable and it would bring them to complain about Eretz Yisrael. And then the Gemara brings the practice of Reb Chia Bar Gamda would roll in the dust. And the Gemara quotes the pasuk Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Ki ratzu avadecha es avaneha ve'es afara yichaynenu. For your servant loves her stones and cherishes her dust. And Rashi, amazingly, says something very unusual. Rashi says, Ki ratzu avadecha es avaneha ve'es afara yichaynenu. Rashi just cites the pasuk, and Rashi omits one word. He omits the word Shenemar. The Gemara says, Shenemar, ki ratzu avadecha es avaneha ve'es afara yichaynenu. And Rashi omits the word Shenemar, he just quotes the pasuk. And the Rav Geldworth said over from the Baal Shem Tov, I saw this from the Imrei Emes, that Rashi is saying something very important. That if you just go over to the stones of Eretz Yisrael and kiss them, because that's what it says in the pasuk, you're a phony, you're a fake. You can't kiss something because it says in the pasuk you should kiss it. Kissing means you love it. You can, the Torah says kiss it. Okay, mwah, mwah, mwah. It's meaningless. It's an empty, meaningless behavior. So Rashi takes out the word shenemar. Shenemar is not why you should kiss it. The Shenemar is saying, as we know, there are some people who love Eretz Yisrael so much that they cherish the stones, but you can't kiss the stone because there's a pasuk in the Tanakh that says to kiss it. So perhaps, maybe the motivation behind what the Brisker Rav was doing was that this is not like a chayk, go kiss the stone. It has to be completely natural, and if it's not natural, it should not be done. It's similar to another idea the Brisker Rav says. The Chazal say that one of the Amoraim would say that he's like vinegar compared to wine, compared to his father, because his father would wait 24 hours between muchiks and fleishiks, and he wouldn't. So the Brisker Rav says, why wouldn't he? If your father did it, so do it. What do you mean his father did it? but he's like vinegar compared to wine. Don't be like vinegar. Wait 24 hours. So the Brisker Rav would say, when it comes to a chumrah is meaningless unless you really feel the concern and the worry of it could lead you to do something wrong. Only then are you allowed to be machmir. But if you're just doing it, I want to be machmir, it doesn't mean anything. So he would have done it if he felt the need for zehirus. He did it. He wasn't on that madrega. Meaning, in order to keep a chumrah, you have to be on that madrega. Similar to that, in order to show love, you have to really love it. Anyway.
What about mezuzah and kissing the Torah?
Yeah. You could make the same case for that. You could make the same case. By the way, Rav Henkin says you're not allowed to kiss the Torah. You know that? Rav Henkin said that, who do you think you are? You're so close to the Torah, you could just go kiss it? Do you think your Torah is your wife? The Torah is like your fifth cousin 70 times removed. So Rav Henkin says you should not put your mouth on the Torah. Besides, he says that you're transferring billions of bacteria to anybody who's coming after you. He says it's presumptuous. Okay, look, nowadays if you're not going to kiss the Torah, they're not going to give you an aliyah and shul. They're going to check into your yichus if you don't kiss the Torah. But there is what to think about. Anyway, here in this sefer, which sefer is this? It's the Masas Hamelach on Kesuvos. On the Gemara, Rabbi Menashe Kibudaka, Shamati Shemar Nagris Heshav L'Sheilas Kinter, Lama Le'Noshak Rabbi Gilar Zav Heshav Shari Koz Rambam Gedolei Chachamim. So he asks, the Rambam uses the same lashon in Yaradea regarding tzedakah. You should give tzedakah before Shemona Esrei. And the lashon of the Rambam here in the Dirshu booklets, he brings the lashon of the Rambam by Hilchos Tzedakah in Hilchos Matnas Aniyim, Gedolei Chachamim Hayu Noisim Tzedakah Lefnei Atfilah. By the way, it doesn't mean right before when you say Gal Yisrael, you should give tzedakah. It means sometime before Shemona Esrei, whether it's by Ashrei or whether it's by Vayivarach David. This way you're mekayim the inyan of Va'ani b'tzedek echaz efanecha. So the Rambam in Hilchos Tzedakah says to give tzedakah before davening. The lashon of the Rambam is Gedolei HaChachamim would give tzedakah. And they asked the Brisker Rav, well, why do you give tzedakah? You don't kiss the stones of Eretz Yisrael because the Rambam only says Gedolei Chachamim. So why do you give tzedakah before davening? So this sefer answers, tzedakah is a mitzvah b'fnei atzmai. Tzedakah is a great mitzvah for every single Jew. Now, the timing of it is to give it before davening l'gdolei chachamim. So that the Grizz could do, because he's not doing something that only Gedolei Chachamim do. Everyone has to give tzedakah. So if the timing of it is only for Gedolei Chachamim, then the Grizz would do it. But the whole inyan of kissing the stones is not a mitzvah, it's only for Gedolei Chachamim, that the Grizz didn't do. The Dirshu booklet brings down that the Rambam, interestingly, in Hilchos Malachim, Parakei Halacha Yud writes, anyone who's buried in Eretz Yisrael gets kapara, but you're better off being there when you're alive. And the Gemara says, even though you're better off being there when you're alive, the great sages would try to be buried there. So is that only for Gedolei Chachamim to be buried in Eretz Yisrael? Or you'll say, well, I would say the same thing. Kapara, everyone needs kapara. So the inyan of kapara is not only for Gedolei Chachamim. I don't know. Okay, that's an interesting...
It's a tsar to tumble to Israel.
So you're saying there it's not presumptuous, it's just less painful. Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. So that concludes this segment. I want to share with you just one short thought.